because we've been dealing with this our entire lives. This is for everyone else who hasn't been dealing with
Listen
this,
up!
who's dealing with it now. Stand up with us, push with us, fight with us. When you see us in Minnesota, fight with us. And when you see us here in Atlanta and in Brunswick, fight with us. Because our fight is your fight. This is the United States of America. We're coming up on July 4th. And this is going to be a very weird July 4th for a lot of people. Very different. Because people are coming to the realization that America doesn't mean America for all Americans. And that's a problem. So keep pushing, fight with us, and hopefully we'll get some change. And this will be the last time we have to have a press conference about a dead black man killed by the police for no reason. Thank you.
Another thing, that some of the witnesses said is they didn't do a sobriety test. There was no count to 100 or whatever it is.
Oh my God.
They said that they were just talking. And it seemed to be a decent conversation. And then all of a sudden, one of the officers grabbed him and told him he's under arrest. So this started from nothing.
Nothing.
This wasn't a bank robbery in progress or anything violent. They just told him he was under arrest. And now I see that they're reporting, it was a suspected DUI or he fell asleep blocking the line. He wasn't blocking the line. And they didn't even do a sobriety test from what the witnesses right there said. So why was he even under arrest? Want to know how this could have been avoided and all of the protests that are going to happen and all this? Talk to him. Talk. Hey, buddy, you fell asleep in line. You okay? Why don't you pull your car over there and call an Uber? And then you walk over and you leave.
Exactly.
Why is that so hard for police officers?
Exactly.
A conversation. He wasn't doing anything crazy or violent or harming anyone. Hey, buddy, I think you've had something to drink. Maybe, but I guess they didn't feel like doing a sobriety test. Pull over there, call an Uber. I guarantee you that happens hundreds of times a night in college towns with young white kids or other places in America. But we don't get that benefit of the doubt.
Now we got another dead man. Now we got another dead man.
Officers like that destroy the image of policing, which I have always held.
Now we got another dead man.
I'm always going against the officers, but y'all are even starting to break me. And most of y'all know that I'll get up there and I say I have respect for officers and policing, but Jesus, y'all, like even I'm starting to lose hope, and that's hard.
If these police officers are so stressed out because of their pay or because of their personal life, maybe they're going through a divorce, or maybe they're taking a chance on possibly losing something, somebody's going to foreclose on them because they can't make their payments, there needs to be some sort of crisis line with all police officers that can be generated through the psychiatric community in case a police officer, in which I'm sure these bigger precincts have this, but it should be mandatory that these officers should have to speak to somebody counseling them to make sure that they aren't just right at the point of breaking over the edge, because all it takes is somebody to say yes whenever they're supposed to say yes sir, or somebody to say no whenever they're supposed to say no sir, and the police officer takes it in a personal way because he's done gotten agitated by the 2 arrests before that, or he's possibly looking at a divorce, or maybe he's going to lose his boat, or maybe he's not going to be able to put his kid through college. There has to be some way or another to redlighting these officers in identifying that these guys is already close to the edge to begin with. Because if it doesn't take no more than this, and just like the deal up there in Massachusetts. If it doesn't take no more than this to set off somebody to the point that all they think of is kill, 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 kill. All they see is red in front of them, kind of like an attacking bull. There has to be some sort of way of identifying that these police officers are already on the edge to begin with. God only knows what's going to erupt out of this. It's sickening whenever you see it again. Mr. Freddie hadn't been in the ground 72 hours. He hadn't been in the ground 3 days. And now it's happened again. And you won't tell me that there's not a problem here in America? Like the commissioner was saying, it wasn't like it was a violent crime being committed. The guy was pulled over on the road. It looked like that he had decided to take a quick nap and maybe didn't get over far enough. These police officers has to recognize the dangers in their jobs that they're trying to perform, because some of them has to become marriage counselors. Some of them has to become barbarians themselves to be able to control somebody that's out of their mind. Some of them has to be elegant towards dealing with a family of 2 or 3 children involved. These police officers has to multitask. And if they can't multitask under these type of normal circumstances, something is going wrong with our police officers, to the point that the psychiatric community should be able to identify this. I don't know what was going on in these police officers' lives. I'm sure we're going to find out. But to just sit there and just kill somebody over nothing. Over nothing. I don't know if it's going to take different methods to obtain somebody that is being... Now, there's no doubt there was a little bit of resistance in this particular arrest, or it looked like that it was. But it started out over nothing. But I don't know if there's some sort of netting that they can use to incarcerate a person, to make them freeze whenever they're getting a bit disorderly. I don't know what it's going to take to apprehend people without killing them, other than killing them. But there has to be a different method other than killing them. Who knows what that man's life was going on? I mean, he may have been trying to work 3 different jobs. He may have been trying to support two different wives, a girlfriend and a wife. He may have had a messed up job, a messed up life himself, the reason why that he was pulled over trying to get him a nap in. Sometimes I got to take a nap because of my diabetes. It's got me off schedule to the point that sometimes whenever a massive sleep falls upon me, sometimes I just can't resist not giving in to that temptation towards going ahead and taking a cat nap. And a lot of times, just a quick 15 or 20 minute nap, boom, bam, I'm up and going again, and I'm ready to go for another 3 or 4 hours. And I don't know if it's because of the medication that I'm taking, or maybe it's because of the age. Maybe it's a little bit of both. The old gray mare, she just ain't what she used to be. But the fact of the matter is, sometimes I got to pull over and take a quick nap because I just feel totally exhausted, and I feel like that any authority figure rather me do that than take a chance on running over a bus load of kids and killing 2 or 3 of them simply because I felt drowsy, I felt sleepy, and I didn't pull over and take a quick nap. You have to be safety conscientious whenever you're a driver. Just like you need to be safety conscientious whenever you're approaching somebody. And there's no doubt you're going to have people that's going to cuss you. You're going to have people that's going to lie to you. You're probably going to have people that's even going to spit on you. You're going to have people that's going to call your mama different names. You're going to have people that's going to show resistance in a way. But just because they do these things, you're supposed to be the cooler. The police officer is supposed to be the cooler. And if the police officer can't cool the moment down without taking out a gun and killing somebody or sticking their knee against their daggum neck and cutting off their oxygen supply, folks, we have a problem with our police officers.
But y'all got any questions? Not much.
Chris, the resignation of the police chief, how does that sit with the team? Is that a step in the right direction?
I don't care.
So, Chris, earlier today, GBI released a video, a surveillance video from Wendy's, and one of the things they pointed out was what you mentioned, the taser in Mr. Brooks' hand, him reaching back and pointing. Why do you think GBI released that video, and can you go into more detail why you think that a taser is a deadly weapon?
I mean, I think they were just releasing the full surveillance video of, the parking lot. I'm sure there's more video. Like I said, witnesses have video of some of these horrific actions. In that video that GBI released, you also can sit there and count how long they let that body lay on the ground before touching him or even trying to assist him. So, the video is helpful for us. It's also helpful to show that they were far apart when he's running and pointing it backwards. But the case law in Georgia, a taser's not a deadly weapon. So they can't say it's not like he was running off with a gun. It's not a deadly weapon. I lose cases against officers who use it on my clients because it's not a deadly weapon. And I'm saying that, they shouldn't have done it. But you just can't have it both ways in this. If it's not a deadly weapon, his life was not in immediate harm when he fired that shot. Just was not. It wasn't. And I watched one of the most conservative police chiefs commentating today, and even he said that there were other options he could have done, and that a taser isn't a deadly weapon. Ask Taser, is a taser a deadly weapon? I promise you they're going to say no.
Chris, what you said, the more you find out, the worse it gets. What are some examples of that?
Well, there's just so many witnesses that saw it. We didn't know that they picked up their shell casings before GBI got there to investigate the scene before. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Chris, I haven't seen the video. Is there concrete audio of any of the conversations between law enforcement and Mr. Brooks?
We haven't gotten all of the audio yet. I think the district attorney's office is also talking to all these witnesses, so.
So he did why, Mr. Brooks, can you speak to why that might have been, the reason behind that can possibly know?
Yeah, there could be 1,000 reasons for someone running from the police, right? So just imagine that if you're sleeping in your car because you're trying to drink something off and you get officers knocking on your window hard, right? The current climate of police officer and black male interaction is not the best, right? So that might scare you at that time of night. So yes, you stand up and you're talking to them and then they're telling you they want you to do something. That might not be what you want to do at that time. And so yes, he tried to get away. That's what it looked like. We don't know because we can't talk to him, right? But it looked like he tried to get away and they would not let him get away. They were hell-bent on stopping him and they stopped him, right? So yes, getting away from a situation that could be detrimental to you also turned into another situation that was detrimental to you. It's a no-win situation. You can't get out of it. And so that's probably what happened, but like I said, we can't speak to it.
And I always try and look at, from these situations, to look at how it wasn't justified for the officer, because I don't ever want to look at something just totally unfairly. And there's just no excuse in this one. If they had maybe shot while the tussle was going on and, they said, oh, he reached for my gun and, that's normally how these happen. They're rolling around on the ground or there's a fight for the gun and then they shoot right then. That's not what happened. If this would have happened while they were all rolling on the ground and you hear someone say gun or he's reaching for my gun, okay, maybe. But that didn't happen. They didn't feel like their life was in danger while they were tussling on the ground or rolling around and grabbing things. No, they waited until he ran off.
Exactly.
So their justification went out the door after they let him run.
We also got to check on the emotional state of these officers. I mean, because it gets personal, you know, and this is a thing when you're in the field, and we understand this, that it is a personal thing. It gets personal to them. But as the professional in the situation, they have to divorce themselves from that emotional aspect of that job. Because if you don't, someone can die, like we saw today, or like we saw with that officer and George Floyd. It can get personal. We understand there's combat. There are big guys wrestling and fighting. But at a certain point, the professional in you has to come out, and you have to calm down and be the professional and show that you have training, which hasn't happened and definitely didn't happen last night.
What more can you tell us about Mr. Brooks? Who he was, where he went, what was his background?
Father, was working at a tortilla place, actually. Family loved him to death. We had more family members at that house today than I could count. A ton of brothers and sisters that love him more than life.
He was supposed to take his daughter skating today for her birthday.
It's just, and I'm sick of sitting in somebody's house and their little kid is playing with us, and we're sitting there trying to laugh with a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old or 8-year-old, knowing, you know, that they'll never see their dad again. Man, I'm literally sick of it.
She had on, when we were there today, she had her birthday dress on because she was waiting for her dad to come pick her up to take her to go skating. Yesterday, her and her dad went. She got her nails done and her toes done. They got something to eat. And today she was waiting on that. So while we were over there, they had a birthday party for her. You know, today there was a birthday. Yeah, 8th birthday today with cupcakes while we were sitting there talking to her mom about why her dad's not coming home. That's the part of it that we see every day that everybody doesn't see. And that's the part that just, it hits you right here. It's terrible.
Chris, when you think of Walter Scott, and you think of 5 years ago, a little over 5 years ago,
That's what this is.
20 years. 20 years for killing a man. What do you say about that?
I mean, that's literally the case that popped in my mind the whole time I was sitting there today, and Justin and I talked about it. It's just like Walter Scott. You know, people forgot about that case because it's been so long and it was so horrific. They said the same thing. Oh, he took my taser, and I shot him while we were wrestling for the taser. And then once we got our hands on the video, we saw that he shot him in the back, 30 yards away. And in that case, they tried the whole taser, he could have killed me with the taser argument, and it didn't work. So it literally brings back memories of Walter Scott, even watching him get shot in the back, just like Walter Scott. And then it was really horrible hearing the witnesses say that they were picking up shell casings or tampering with the scene, whatever they were doing, because that happened to Walter Scott. The officer went and threw the taser close to the dead body. So it's just horrible to be reliving the Walter Scott case again.
And one thing we want to make sure people know, we don't think this is, these are one-offs. We know they're not. We're seeing them more and more, and that's not because society is getting worse, just because technology is getting better, right? There are more cameras everywhere, so we're seeing more of this stuff. But it's the same stuff. It's been happening. The difference is you can't lie in your report because there's a camera that's going to get you, right? You can't make up some story because there's a camera that's going to get you. You can't throw a taser close to somebody because there's a camera that's going to come get you. We saw today what happened last night. We saw it. And while Mr. Brooks was not perfect, he could have done a couple things too. And we're not saying he couldn't have. But the officer had the last best chance to stop that from happening. He had the most training to stop that from happening. And he didn't do that, and that resulted in our client's death.
Is there anything the witnesses were able to tell you about what led to a struggle? Like what was said in the car, or what?
No, they're confused because they thought that the conversation appeared civil or decent. They didn't, see him screaming at the cops or doing anything. And then out the blue, they said they just tried to arrest him. And of course, he got upset and pulled away. Like, why? What are y'all doing? And then it went from there. And I see it too many times. Is if you're not going to explain why you're going to arrest somebody, or tell me, I'm going to not turn around. Why am I getting arrested? I can ask what's going on. Why can't you have a conversation with him about why he's being arrested?
And you say a witness told you he was dragged out of the car?
No, they were speaking outside of the vehicle, from what they said. So he willingly got out. But like I said, this just happened yesterday. We're still talking to people, but every witness, white, black, they're just blown away because they said it should not have happened, and that there was no reason for him to shoot him while he was running off. This wasn't a violent crime. They had his ID. They knew where he lived. They knew what kind of car he was. They have the car. Where's he going?
Exactly.
But it's just because, the value of life is gone somewhere. It's like a video game where you just think you shoot somebody and it's not an actual father or a human being.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to lose faith.
I've known you for years. I've never seen you like this. I know you're tired, you're sad, you're mad. Not to speak for you, but you're still ready to fight.
Yeah, oh no. I mean, that's not going to change. I mean, we'll keep fighting these as long as we have to, and making sure people get fired or resign or whatever, or get put in jail. Because we have to do our part to try and make it stop. But the one thing that Justin and I really realizing is it's a national effort. Black, white, male, female, the only way this is going to change is if everybody keeps coming together. People who are conservative or didn't want to speak up or say anything, you've got to speak up. You just got to speak up.
You mentioned training earlier. Is it time to overhaul training altogether? I mean, it seems like in all these cases, usually the officers actually do that training. Is it the nature of the training, or is it?
Chris, we've covered a million of these. What is, we know there's so many loopholes. There is no clear time of when to shoot or not to shoot. It's always in the mind of that officer. Well, sometimes that mental state of that officer is not okay. They're not well. They're not, they're too angry. They're too upset. It should be, this wouldn't have happened if you cannot shoot someone unless they're pointing a gun at you. Or unless they're brandishing a gun. You just can't shoot them. You can't shoot them if they have a taser. You can't shoot them if they have a knife and they're 50 feet away. Or you go to jail.
Exactly.
There aren't definite rules like that. Lawyers have rules. Doctors have definite rules. You can't leave something in somebody's body. But with police officers, there's so much gray area. When being a police officer is the most powerful job in this country. There's no other job where you could take someone's life, liberty, or freedom. There's no job that is as powerful as a police officer. They should be up on the standard of doctors and lawyers and looked at like that, but they're not. And that's got to change.
To that training question you just asked, it does need to be overhauled. We need to focus more on de-escalation and less on militarization. The police officers, they walk around in these neighborhoods, they have flak jackets on, some of them have ARs and other assault-type rifles. They are armed to the teeth, and then they're walking around people, intimidating and inciting fear. There used to be a time when police officers would walk around and you know their name, they know your name, they know where you went to school and your mom and all that kind of stuff. That time is over, especially in the black community. I don't really remember a time that has been the case in the black community, and now that time is completely over. So we need to focus the police department more on de-escalation. And if officers are going to be in the community, check and see how close these two officers live to that community that they were policing. I guarantee you they live nowhere near there, right? And if they did, check and see what kind of contacts they had in the community. Did they go to church there? Did their kids go to school in that community? I guarantee you the answer is no. Because if they did, they would understand that, hey, these are people too, and maybe I could deal with them the same way I deal with the people who live close to me.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with empathy, like I said before, and training for de-escalation and not militarization.
And this week, other than, to assist in trying to solve this policing issue, we'll be releasing our thoughts and ideas over what changes we think could end this from having handled so many of these. Because something's got to happen other than just lawsuits and asking for arrests. But thank y'all. As I said, the family will be speaking on Monday. They needed some time. Thank y'all.
All right. There you have it. Very strong words from these two lawyers representing Rayshard Brooks, the 27-year-old African-American man who was shot and killed by police last night at a Wendy's drive-through restaurant. I want to show our viewers what's going on the streets of Atlanta right now. Large crowds are gathering right now. They're clearly seeking to shut down Interstate 75. Natasha Chen, before we get to analysis of what we just heard from these two lawyers, very strong words from Chris Stewart and Justin Miller. Tell us what you're seeing right now. You're on the scene for us. What is this, Interstate 75?
Yeah, exactly. So the protesters have tried to get onto the freeway. They were going up the hill, up the ramp, obviously with officers trying to stop that from happening. And then you have another group of people, crowds, that are still gathered on the street below. So they're sort of scattered throughout the area, all along the street close to the Wendy's where this incident first happened. And, there are protesters really urging people to join them on the interstate, which of course police are trying to discourage. Now, about, I would say 30 minutes ago, on the ground, on the street closer to the Wendy's, there was a group gathered around a squad car, sort of blocking it in. And at that point, there was some tear gas deployed. There was a flashbang, and people really dispersed and ran in different directions. But they sort of regrouped and started walking toward the freeway ramps at that point, Wolf.
The crowd seems to be getting bigger and bigger. So I guess the police are just allowing these folks to stand on this freeway, Interstate 75 right now. There doesn't seem to be any effort to remove them, right?
At this moment, it looks like they're sort of, I don't know what the right term would be, not a stalemate, but they're sort of staring at each other. I will say that there are police squad cars and other law enforcement. I think I saw state troopers, helping to block the freeway ramps with their vehicles. But of course, that has not stopped people from just running up the hillside up to...
They're going to have to redirect the traffic, is what you're going to have to do. Shut off 2 or 3 exits. In other words, this is going to cause a road calamity towards people either going home or going to work or whatever. And probably before nightfall, it's probably going to get, or during nightfall, it's probably going to get violent. You're probably going to see some stuff tore up and some people get gassed or shot with rubber bullets or water cannons or something. I mean, you got people. This is the perfect storm because you have housed all these people up for their benefit pertaining to the coronavirus, and now you got all these people that don't have jobs. They're pissed because they don't have no extra money. They're mad because they're seeing these incidences continue to happen with the police officers in the black race, and because of it, it is the perfect storm towards watching uprisings such as this occur here in America. And once more, it's what the Bible predicts that's going to happen in the last days, for perilous times will come. Nation will rise against nation. Community against community. People against organizations and law enforcement agencies. You're seeing Satan rise up in great wrath in the last days.
the interstate. So they have made an attempt to stop people using their squad cars at the base of the...
Once more, the people around here in this area, they didn't want to support the Windmill Ministries. They didn't want peace. The Weakley County Police Department didn't want peace. Tommy Moore and Tommy Thomas didn't want peace. Randy Brundridge and the Martin PD didn't want peace. These churches in Kenton, Tennessee didn't want peace. So let them hash it out. I've done all that I can do. Once more, the ministry did not fail the people, but the people failed the ministry because they never supported us. After 30 years, what do you think's going to happen?
Ramps, and of course at another freeway ramp on the other side, we were seeing a line of troopers and officers forming a line themselves to try and stop people from entering the ramp. But again, like I said, that didn't stop people from going around and just going up the grassy hill up to the interstate, Wolf.
Yeah, we saw them as we were watching the news conference with the two lawyers representing Rayshard.
It's really sad. Just like my attorney spoke to me yesterday, I had an appointment to go in his office, and I explained to him about David and all this situation going on out here that caused David basically of dying a premature death. And he looked at me, and at least he had enough sense to say, well, you know what? It may not have actually caused his death, but it didn't help it none, now did it? And that's the bottom line. Stress is the #1 killer in America. And David trying to hold down a job, working for McLean Power, working 60 plus hours a week, and having to deal with all this chaos that his so-called buddies and his so-called friends brought up into his life illegitimately, they'll give an account for this one day in the hereafter. Because they was attacking us. Not once, not twice, but dozens of times. We was being victimized. We was being attacked. We was being hunted. And now whenever I drive by, they sit back and laugh. They're still in a daze about all this. And they still can't figure it out because their minds is warped. Well, they won't be warped for much longer. The way things is going with all this protesting and the COVID-19, it's just a matter of time before great misery and sorrow will fall upon this area too as well, if it hadn't already. God is not going to put up with this type of unjustfulness and let this go. We serve a righteous God. We serve a just God. We serve a living God. And God, if he has to, will bring misery upon to the innocent because of that in which what the guilty is doing. It talks about all these things will be the beginnings of God's sorrows. The sorrows that will fall upon the humanity in the last days. Great sorrows. Great distress. Great remorse. Great agony. You know, you can smoke all the weed and take all the pills and drink all the beer and the whiskey you want. But eventually you're going to have to come down to reality. And whenever reality strikes at your front door, such as their reality and other areas throughout the countryside and throughout the world pertaining to that reality, well, you ain't going to escape this reality. You can drink all you want, smoke all the weed you want, take all the pills you want. I guarantee you, you're not going to escape this reality because it's coming near a neighborhood near you.
Brooks, we saw people beginning to climb that little hill up to Interstate 75, and there you see the live pictures coming in right now. And Natasha, tell us what happened earlier. You were telling us briefly there was a real standoff between police outside that Wendy's restaurant. They were trying to get their car removed, and some of the protesters were blocking them. It was a very, very tense moment we were watching.
Yeah, actually, that wasn't in front of the Wendy's directly. It was across the street at a liquor store. It looks like there's some movement now. Looks like people are coming down the hill. I guess police are trying to disperse this group as well.
It looks like cars are beginning to looks like police cars beginning to make a move to remove these folks from Interstate 75, a major interstate, a major freeway in the Atlanta area. But go ahead.
Yes, and so earlier it was a group that was surrounding a squad car by a liquor store across the street from the Wendy's, and I believe it's because that squad car was sort of blocked in, and you know, we were trying to observe what was happening, but from a safe distance, and so I don't know exactly what happened right up in front. What we saw next was tear gas and people running in all directions, and a flashbang after that.
Stand by, because I don't want you to go too far away, Natasha. I want to bring in Cedric Alexander, the former president of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, the former public safety director of DeKalb County, near in the Atlanta area in Georgia. Cedric, what do you think about this situation? You heard those two lawyers representing Rayshard Brooks, but now you see the standoff, a very tense situation in Atlanta.
Well, what we're looking at, Wolf, is kind of reminiscent of where we were a week, 2 weeks ago, unfortunately. I just hope in all this that the protesters that are out there, that they remain peaceful, because if their response is in response to the loss of the life of this young man that happened last night, and the only way their voice is going to be heard is that they can, that they can peacefully protest and carry out that mission. But it's important that they do so. But, Wolf, you and I have been here before. We were here back in 2014 doing Michael Brown and subsequent cases that occurred. And here we are again, back here tonight. And something is going on in this country that we're going to truly have to address. And at this point, for me, and someone who has been in law enforcement, had been in law enforcement a very long time, and someone who has practiced as a psychologist, I will tell you, this country is hurting. People are afraid. People are frightened. People are sad. People are angry. And people don't like feeling that way anymore. And I'll tell you, Wolf, for someone like myself, who spent all my life pretty much in public safety, it really hurts me, as I'm quite sure it does many other chiefs and sheriffs across this country, when we hear that people don't trust us anymore. And then we have situations to arise, and whether they were justified or not, at this very moment, in the eyes of people across this country, they are only thing that they have in their mind are the images that they saw a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So it's hard for many people to move from this place, but we do have to give the investigative body there in Georgia, the GBI, an opportunity to do their investigation, to complete it, and to afford whatever they're able to reveal to the public. But it is hard for people to have any patience. It's very hard for people at this very moment to feel that they can trust. But I encourage them. We've seen the work of the GBI. They have always been fair and balanced. I worked with them when I was there in DeKalb County as public safety director. They responded to a number of officer-involved shootings I was involved in. They are thorough. They are fair. And if you go back to the Albury case just a couple of weeks ago, they were able to come in, do an investigation, and come to some resolve about what need to be done. So I'm just hoping, in light of what's going on in this country today, that we allow all the evidence to present itself, because we still have not seen
the evidence to present itself. Give GBI time to sort it out. He acts like that we're living back 20 years ago back whenever it was he said, she said. Whenever you have documentation in a digital form that shows exactly what happened and how it happened, there's no longer no purpose for sorting nothing out. The proof is in the pudding. We are no longer living where he said, she said. When you have documentation proving that something has occurred, and then you're wanting to prolong it, like, well, we really need to investigate this a little thoroughly because maybe something else was going on here that just doesn't meet the camera eye. Whenever a man was running from the officers, and the officers' lives was not in danger, and they still pulled out a gun and shot this man down just like shooting a dog in the street, that is cold-blooded. That is cold-blooded. Now, if those officers' lives was in danger, it would have been different. But that man was basically running for his life. And where was he going to go? He wasn't going to go nowhere. They had his identification. They had his daggum automobile. He would have possibly run, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, and given out. And then they could have captured him. They could have talked some sense into him. Hey, buddy, ain't no need of you running. We've already got you. We got your automobile. But no, panic set in. Rage. It's demortifying. It's absolutely asinizing to think that there's any more to investigate whenever you see this on TV unfold in black and white.
Unheard from other people, such as you heard the attorneys even spoke to tonight. There's some conflicting statements there based on what we heard so far. So my concern right now is that community in Atlanta and across this country is that people march peacefully. And because I don't want them to lose focus of their concern, because I want people in America and around the world to hear them, but they can't hear anything when it turns to violence.
Stand by, Cedric. I want to bring back Mark Morial, the president and CEO of the National Urban League, the former mayor of New Orleans. Mark, you were watching the two lawyers representing Rayshard Brooks, L. Chris Stewart, Justin Miller. They were very, very strong, very powerful words they were uttering. And now you see these protesters. They've climbed up that hill. They've shut down Interstate 75 in Atlanta. I'm sure you know the area well. I know the area well myself. And so there's no traffic on the interstate right now. So give us your analysis, Mark. What's happening in Atlanta right now in the aftermath of this police shooting of Rayshard Brooks at that Wendy's?
I think the two lawyers could not have been clearer in indicating what, in fact, this case is all about. This man was shot in the back while fleeing, and he was using a taser, which is not a deadly weapon. I think, importantly, Wolf, that part of this matter, that part of this case, and then at the beginning, what in fact caused the tussle between the police officers and the gentleman? What caused that at the beginning of the case? Did the officers act in a provocative way, in a way that escalated a conversation? It would be very troubling to me if they sought to arrest him without conducting a field sobriety test,
right,
or calling out for the breathalyzer truck to come out,
right,
and determine whether or not he in fact broke the law in any material or substantial way, whether he was feeling bad or he was sick. So the lawyers, I think, laid this matter out, and enough is enough. Look, see, this is an accumulation of cases which seem to just fit a pattern. An unarmed black man is shot by the police. either fleeing or not doing anything threatening or provocative. It was unnecessary use of force in this instance. Look, what is changing our perspective on this is the availability of videos, the availability of tapes, our ability to see it with our own eyes, make our own judgment, and make our own determination.
Exactly.
So what I say to people, if they say, is more happening now than before? I don't think so. I just think there's more transparency, more visibility.
Right.
We can see, and the old lies and stories and cover-ups are much, much more difficult to advance now. If these officers picked up those shell casings, they were determined to tamper with the scene of a crime. That alone is causation for not only a prosecution, but also for them to lose their job. So the protesters in Atlanta, as I mentioned, this is accumulated. It's the George Floyd situation. It's the Ahmaud Arbery situation. It's the Breonna Taylor situation. And it's also in Atlanta, the two prior cases, one with the two college students, the other with the woman who was thrown to the ground and broke her clavicle, that has certainly got the community in a protest mindset. And that protest mindset, I think, is going to continue. One thing I'll say is, it's one thing, and I think everyone agrees, that the protesters should be peaceful. But also, the police can't be provocative, escalate. I have a big problem with the use of tear gas, which creates chaos, creates confusion, and sometimes can escalate the situation beyond where it ought to be. Final thing I'll say, Wolf, just in this commentary, is the Justice in Policing Act, now pending before the Congress. I think people understand why there needs to be a powerful federal response. The Justice in Policing Act, we think, is that federal response. It doesn't solve the problem by itself, but it would be the most powerful statement that the Congress of the United States can make at this time on this issue.
Yeah, all right, Mark, I want you to stand by. Cedric, everybody, Natasha's with us. Joey Jackson is still with us. Cornell William Brooks is going to be joining us. We're staying on top of the breaking news right now. You saw what was going on Interstate 75, protesters shutting it down effectively. Now it looks like they're moving to under that Interstate 75 elsewhere in the area. Natasha Chen is still with us. She's going to update all of our viewers on these late-breaking developments. This in the aftermath of the police shooting of Rayshard Brooks, 27 years old, at a Wendy's drive-thru. Much more of our special coverage right here in the Situation Room after a quick break. Tired of
sad. It's really sad. There has to be a better way of apprehending individuals that they feel like that they should apprehend without having to kill them. Has to be. Good luck to all of us. Shalom.